This is the block in the preset that makes your tone sound expensive.
So you're probably wondering what kind of witchcraft I used in this preset, because this sounds expensive. Like I should get a Helix expensive. This is the part of the chain where we stop pretending the amp is perfect and start cleaning up the unwanted frequencies. Think of this block as tone therapy. We're not changing who you are, we're removing the emotional baggage your amp keeps dumping into that mix. All right, and before you ask, yes, this is the exact preset you can download for free. Instructions are at the end. I'm not handing out tone like Halloween candy.
All right, roll the logo. So now that you've seen the emotional damage that's behind me, let's get into why we're here. Let's talk about this EQ, because it's not just here for decoration. This is part of the chain where I stop pretending the amp is perfect and start fixing the stuff it refuses to admit it's doing wrong.
This is where a lot of guitar players fall apart. We think our tone is heroic, like we personally helped win the war on tone terror. Meanwhile, the amp is hiding sub-rumble, fizz, and artifacts like a teenager hiding bad report cards. So let's fix it. Here's how line 6 can actually help clean this up.
This is surgical EQ, not a tone shaping tool, not a vibe enhancer, not a this helps maybe I guess. It's here to clean up the mess that the amp left behind. This is the sub-rumble filter.
Sub-rumble filter. Sounds dramatic, but it's really just the part of your preset that stops your amp from shaking the drywall for no reason. Every amp, physical or model, spits out this sub-rumble at 80 hertz junk because it's not punch, not warm, not THICC thick, just noise. Kind of noise that makes your bass player think you're after his job. So let's take all that low-end garbage, politely escort it out of the building.
It keeps the low end tight, it keeps the IR clean, and makes sure the bass player doesn't show up in my house with a shovel. This right here is the cardboard zone. It's where honk lives.
If your tone has ever sounded like it was yelling through a paper towel tube, congratulations. You've already met this frequency. This is that 300 to 500 hertz area where your mids stop being warm and start being nasal congestion or boxy, like your guitar caught a head cold. A tiny cut here does wonders. You're not removing mids, you're removing the complaining part of the mids.
Cutting here smooths the mids out, so your guitar still speaks but doesn't sound like it's yelling through a paper towel tube. And this right here, this is the pick attack harshness zone.
And this is where it can go wrong fast, or sound professional with the right touch. This is that lovely little sparkle around 700 to 900 hertz. The exact frequency that jumps out every time you get excited and start playing like you're a 12-year-old girl trying to win Taylor Swift tickets. This isn't brightness. This is the upper mid resonance that turns your pick attack into a tiny angry ice pick. A small cut, about -2 dB, with a tight Q doesn't kill your tone. Just stops it from receiving assault charges every time you dig in.
It's not treble, it's the upper mids that get spiky when you dig in. Cutting here keeps the tone smooth, especially when presence is dialed up. Right here, the high cut, this is the fizz filter.
The unsung hero of epic tone. This is the part of the preset that saves your tone from sounding like it's being played through a soda can full of bees. And yes, before you ask, that little brittle digital top end exists in every digital device. Modelers, pedals, IR loaders, wireless systems. If it goes analog, digital, analog, it's got shimmer of shame hiding in there. I'm not trashing tube amps. Here's the truth. Digital stomp boxes only touch a slice of your sound. The tube amp behind them hides the harshness with a natural speaker roll-off above 5 to 6 kilohertz. Tube harmonics, mic roll-off, compression, all that stuff. A modeler doesn't have that safety net. So if you don't manually high cut the top end, you get fizz, hash, and that tin can nastiness. That's why I run 7 kilohertz high cut on the IR and an 8 kilohertz high cut on the parametric EQ. Keeps the top end clean, stops stereo fizz from stacking, and still leaves enough sparkle to stay alive.
It keeps the top end clean, prevents harshness from stacking in stereo, and still leaves enough sparkle to stay alive. So the post-amp EQ lives in the effects loop, because that's where the real tone finally stops lying to me.
Front of amp EQ is just pickup shaving, thinning humbuckers, thickening single coils, but once the signal hits the preamp and the power amp, that's where the chaos happens. Most tube amps really only have one trick: frequency volume control. That's why I put EQ in the loop. You're not shaping the guitar anymore, you're shaping the finished tone. This is where you clean up the mess at 80 Hz, 124 Hz, 390 Hz, 750 Hz, and everything above 7 to 8K. Front of amp EQ is a polite suggestion. Loop EQ is the intervention.
The amp and the guitar already have a voice I actually like. But the second I start pushing them, they start throwing out harshness and mud and frequencies that feel like a personal attack on my manhood.
They sound charming and vintage, right up until you push them. Then, suddenly they're throwing out 120 Hz of mud, 350 Hz of cardboard, 750 Hz pick attack spikes, and 8 kilohertz fizz, like they're setting a personal score. And the wild part? None of that shows up at bedroom volume. That's why post-amp EQ matters. You're not fixing the guitar, you're fixing the IR. You're cleaning up the personality flaws the amp reveals under pressure.
Putting EQ in the loop is where I finally realized, oh, this is where the tone actually becomes the tone. For me, this is the moment the preset starts being intentional. Once I started treating post-amp EQ like the cleanup crew after the amp's little temper tantrum, everything got clearer, smoother, and way more mix ready.
That was the moment it finally clicked for me. The second I put EQ after the amp, not in front, not on the IR, but in the loop, everything made sense. All the junk the amp throws out under gain, 120 Hz bloom, the 350 Hz cardboard, the 750 Hz pick attack spikes, the 8K fizz, it all lines up in one place. And you can finally fix it instead of fighting it.
So this part looks weird, but bear with me.
It looks weird because this is the part of the preset where EQ can only take you so far. The amp doesn't just throw out frequencies, it throws out behavior. Dig in and the mids jump. Palm mute and the lows swell. Strum hard and the top end gets spicy, which is exactly why the 3-band compressor, modeled off of a C4 style multi-band mastering compressor, walks in like the calm adult supervising a room full of sugar-loaded toddlers.
Now that the amps have screamed, punched, sparkled, and generally acted like unsupervised children.
At Pokemon-themed birthday party, I might add, because here's the truth. Amps don't just throw out frequencies, they throw out dynamic chaos. The lows swell around 80 to 120 Hz when you palm mute, the mids jump around 600 to 90 Hz when you dig in, and the top end gets spicy above 5 to 7 kilohertz when you strum too hard. And all that happens in real time, faster than any EQ node can chase. This is where the 3-band compressor steps in, not to change your tone, but to keep it from behaving like a group science project where everyone forgot their part and started lighting things on fire.
It's time to introduce this one block that keeps this whole preset from turning into a group science project gone wrong. This is the 3-band compressor, the glue, the hall monitor, the calm adult in the room. It doesn't change your tone, it just makes sure your tone behaves.
This finally gets everyone to calm down. The amp's been out here throwing 80 Hz booms, 350 Hz cardboard, 750 Hz pick spikes, and 7 to 8 kilohertz fizz like confetti. And the 3-band compressor is the one going, all right kids, inside voices. And the cool part, it's not squishing your whole tone. Each band does its own tiny job. Low band up to 120 Hz, catches the low end swell. Mid-band, 300 to 90 Hz, smooths the honk and the pick attack jumps. High band, 2 to 8 kHz, tames the fizz and the harshness. Doesn't change your tone. This is the moment the preset stops being chaotic and starts being controlled.
In the loop, the compressor isn't fighting the preamp, it's shaping the finished tone.
The lows swell at 80 to 120 Hz. The mids jump at 600 to 900 Hz. The top end gets spicy above 5 to 7 kHz. And the 3-band compressor catches all of it in real time. After the amp throws its tantrum, this is where it stops being a squish pedal and starts being tone glue. It shapes the finished sound, so the left and right amps stop acting like two kids telling different versions of the same story.
So the left and the right amps stop acting like two siblings fighting over the last chicken nugget and it's Saturday at Chick-fil-A. Let me show you how I set up this 3-band compressor. Instead of squishing the whole signal like a regular compressor, this thing splits the tone into 3 zones. Each band gets its own tiny bouncer who decides how much chaos is allowed.
3 tiny bouncers is exactly what this thing feels like. Instead of one compressor sitting on your whole tone like a weighted blanket, each band handles its own little crisis. The low band catches every 80 to 120 Hz boom the second you palm mute. The mid band breaks up the fights between 300 and 900 Hz honk and the 750 Hz pick spike, and the high band sweeps up the 5 to 8 kHz fizz before it turns into a full-blown treble riot. It's not changing your tone, it's just preventing your tone from starting a bar fight.
In the low band, this catches the rumbles and boosts the usable punch.
The low band is the bouncer with the hardest job. This is the one catching all the 80 to 120 Hz rumble the second you palm mute, so the low end stops behaving like a subwoofer that just discovered caffeine. Here's the cool part. Because it clamps down on the useless rumble, it actually boosts the usable punch, that tight, focused thump around 100 Hz. That makes the guitar feel alive without stepping on the bass player's whole personality. It's not making the lows louder, it's making the lows behave.
It's like telling the low end, hey buddy, inside voice.
So once the low band finally stops 80 to 120 Hz boom from acting like it owns the room, you can actually hear what the mids are doing, which is usually screaming for help. Because the second the lows calm down, all that 390 Hz honk and that 750 Hz pick attack spike steps forward like, hi, yes, we'd also like to ruin the mix. But don't worry, we're addressing that.
The mid band, this smooths the honk.
Then the mid band is the one that keeps the 300 to 900 Hz honk from jumping out and announcing itself like it's the lead singer at a dive bar karaoke night. It keeps the mids from turning into a bad karaoke version of honka-tonk badonka-donk every time you hit a chord. A tiny bit of compression here is just enough to catch that 750 Hz pick attack spike as well. So your tone doesn't suddenly trigger childhood memories of watching Chucky alone in the dark.
So chords sound rich instead of nasally. It's the difference between warm mids and cardboard megaphone. This, the high band, this tames the harshness.
The high band is the one keeping the 5 to 8 kHz range from turning into that brittle digital ice pick through the forehead energy. This is where all the fizz, hash, and accidental treble crimes live, especially when you strum too hard or stack gain. A tiny bit of compression here catches those spikes before they stab the mix, but it doesn't choke the shimmer. It just keeps the harshness in check so the top end can actually shine instead of scream.
So the top end sparkles.
So important it needs to be repeated. That's the whole point of the high band. It catches the 5 to 8 kHz spikes that show up when you strum too hard, stack gain, or accidentally breathe near the guitar wrong. Just enough compression to stop the ice pick moments without killing the shimmer.
Instead of stabbing, it's basically a tiny firefighter putting out treble fires. The ratio is at 2 to 1. Gentle, musical. Attack is at 0.1 milliseconds. Catches spikes instantly, and it releases at 134 milliseconds. A smooth recovery. No pumping, and the level brings the glued signal back up.
Yeah, those numbers only make sense in the loop. A 2 to 1 ratio keeps the tone natural because it's reacting to the finished signal. It still catches the real troublemakers, the low end swell, the mid jump, the top end spikes. That 0.1 millisecond attack is basically instant. It grabs the transients the moment the amp spits it out, before it turns into that 5 to 7 kilohertz digital bite. 134 millisecond release is the sweet spot. Fast enough to recover between notes, slow enough to avoid pumping, and musical enough to make the amp feel like it finally took a deep breath. And here's the part that people forget. Once the compressor smooths all that chaos, the signal gets a little quieter. So the level control brings the glued tone back where it belongs. Not louder, not squashed, just restored. Makeup game, not volume cheating. All this only works because the compressor is seeing the whole picture. The distortion, the sag, the EQ cleanup, not just the raw guitar signal.
When the compressor lives here in the loop, it glues the whole thing together. The amp still gets to be expressive, chaotic, dramatic, you know, like a teenager. That's its job.
This is the moment it all clicks. Once the compressor is in the loop, the preset stops feeling like a bunch of blocks you're hoping will get along and starts feeling like one instrument. The amps can still be dramatic. The EQ can still clean up the mess, but the compressor is the thing that makes the whole rig feel intentional, consistent, stable, and actually playable at real volume.
Once I started treating loop compression like the gentle glue that holds everything together, the whole preset got tighter, smoother, and way more mix ready.
It's the difference between chasing tone and finally having tone that shows up to work. These blocks aren't based on pedals, they're based on studio gear. The EQ behaves like an API or SSL console EQ, and the compressor behaves like a wave-style multi-band mastering compressor.
All right, well, I'm Thatch, this is the Helix, and this has been my TED Talk on emotional tone stability for guitarists. Roll the logo, I'm getting coffee.
Wow, amazing. This man really thought he was gonna end the video without me. What a jerk. All right, since he forgot literally the most important part, I'll do it myself. Here's how you get the preset. Step 1, hit the link in the description. That takes you straight to the preset download. Step 2, download the preset and the IR. Yes, both. And the IR is free, like actually free, from Worship Tutorials. They're the ones who made it. We didn't make it. We're just borrowing it, like responsible adults. Step 3, open HXEdit. Drag the preset into whatever slot you want, preferably not over something important, but hey, chaos is a lifestyle. Step 4, load the IR into the correct slot. This preset will tell you which number it expects. If you put it in the wrong one, the Helix will sound like it's playing through a cardboard box. Step 5, turn your master volume up, because this preset was built at real volume. If you run it whisper quiet, it's gonna feel like tone-flavored LaCroix. Instead of amazing liquid death. Man, I wish I was paid to say that. Once you do all that, boom, you've got the exact tone from the video. EQ cleanup, loop compression, emotional stability, all the stuff YouTubers pretend they invented. All right, now I'm getting coffee.